Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good morning. Welcome to Financial Issues. Thanks for tuning in today, where you will be encouraged. You will be encouraged to adopt a biblically responsible investment strategy in the way that you invest. And if you want to find out how to do that the easy way, become a partner with our ministry for just $132 a year. You can find out all the details at financialissues.org. You'll also be encouraged to be a joyful, generous giver, an obedient giver on today's show. So, financial issues, our goal is to help educate people about financial issues from a biblical worldview. If you are a partner, a couple of heads up here, the partner conference call from last week is posted on the partner side of the website. You can log in there and you can get all the goods on what we think about happening in the market, in the economy. And this time we focused a lot on our strategy, answering questions for the new rollout of the website, not just the technical stuff about how to update your portfolio tracker and things like that, but real questions about strategy. So we hope that it was a little bit longer than usual. We try to keep it right at an hour, but we had so many questions come in and we wanted to get you the answers to those. Also, we did send out an alert on yesterday. Make sure that if you're a partner, you got that in your inbox. Check your spam folders and all that good stuff. If you still can't find it, log into the website, go to the partners tab and go to the alerts part, and you'll be able to see what that is there. And commentary is up as well. So if you're a partner, that's one of the other benefits that you get is we do post a weekly commentary. It's typically hits the website sometime late on Monday. Sometimes it's Tuesday morning, like it was this week, because it didn't make it all the way out of my outbox to the appropriate people. So just look for that, if not on Monday evenings, by Tuesday midday for sure. So check that out if you're a partner. If you're not a partner, consider becoming one. Let's shift gears. We are going to get to answering some questions of yours that you've sent into the ministry on today's show. We're also going to get encouragement from the scripture, as always, for this Wednesday of Holy Week as we look at Judas conspiring to betray Jesus. So that comes, our stewardship verse comes from Matthew 26:14 and 16. We'll get to that a little bit later. Let's take a look at some economic data. So we did get import and export numbers out yesterday, and everyone has been anticipating higher prices from tariffs. We talked about yesterday on the show how there's at least one company that's actually passing along the tariffs. I guess they're already experiencing tariffs on the products that they sell and putting that on customers' receipts with a friendly reminder that they can thank Trump for that extra that they're having to pay for their prices. Now, I would suggest, considering the kind of company that it is, that their products are very discretionary. People don't have to have them. And so, that's the struggle that companies are going to have. So we got the import and export prices yesterday, and the BLS is the one that reports, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics is the one that reports these numbers. And what they reported was that U.S. import prices slipped 0.1% in March of 2025 from the previous month, following a downwardly revised 0.2% increase in February. So this defied market expectations for no change. Well, you say market experts are expecting no change. Why is that if tariffs are supposed to increase prices? Well, it's because we're looking at the March numbers, and the tariffs didn't actually start until April. And then it's been up in the air, some are on, some are off. So it's very interesting to watch the back and forth. So this was the first monthly decline since September of 2024, and it was driven largely by a 2.3% drop in fuel prices, which is a good thing, a welcome thing for many consumers, as so many of the things, not only the gas that we put into our cars, but lots of the products that we consume use petroleum. It's sort of everywhere. Transportation cost, if you fly or if you buy anything that's delivered to a store, is in play there. So so this number is already old news because it is for March, before the tariffs actually started. So in addition, the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, their export prices exclude tariffs because they are taxes, which is not part of the trade calculation, which is not a part of the net trade calculations, but are included as GDP, as government expenditures. So will we even be able to tell by watching these import-export numbers as to whether the cost of the tariffs are being passed along to U.S. consumers? Maybe not exactly, but we can get a good indication. So, contrary to what might be intuitive, if import prices go down, it means that those that are sending goods into the U.S. are lowering their prices enough to offset what the U.S. importer will pay for the tariff, because Customs is the one that collects those tariffs, and they collect them from the entity or company that imports the goods that are subject to tariffs. So if the exporting country is actually going to eat the tariff, they do that by lowering the prices on what they are sending to the U.S. to those who are paying to have them imported, because the importer will pay the tax, and then they don't have to pass that along to the consumer or let it shrink their own margins. Another way that we can potentially tell is to watch earnings calls from affected U.S. companies. So a lot of times these companies will say in their conference calls to their shareholders whether they are explicitly passing the cost on to customers or absorbing them in their margins, or doing a little bit of both. Unfortunately, these results won't be delivered until sometime closer to the summertime, when second quarter earnings season kicks off, because the tariffs, again, don't go into effect, or didn't go into effect until April, so they won't be in the earnings season that we are seeing happening right now. So once a quarter, publicly traded companies report their results to their shareholders and to the public. That's one of the requirements of being a publicly traded company. So they post their business results. They say what happened in the previous quarter with their earnings and their sales. How much money did they bring in on the top line? How much did revenues increase or decrease, and how much money they actually made, which is their bottom line earnings. That is the number that they calculate from what comes in minus their expenses or what goes out. So that gives us the best picture of how to value a company. So if you're looking at a publicly traded company, whatever source you get your data from, you can go on and you can look and you can see all of their previous quarterly earnings. You can see their annual earnings. You can see their sales, and you can identify for yourself whether or not the company is one that you should invest in. So what you want to see is a good trend of growth, not only in the top line, but in the bottom line. It's very important for both, because, good companies will manage their expenses in tough times and maybe maintain their margins, maybe maintain their earnings. But if their top line is not growing, or at least staying steady, then that can indicate problems. And those are the things that stock analysts look at long term. Long term, it's earnings that drive stock prices because, you can only go for so long on the hype or the expectation of what's coming in the future. Short term, it's fear and greed that drives the market. And we've been seeing that play out very markedly before our own eyes. All right, we're coming up on a break here. Before we go, I want to encourage you to check out one of our partners, Crossroads Kids Club. Roughly 91% of America's youth attend public schools. And if you want to be able to help get the message, the gospel of Jesus Christ into the public schools, there's no better way to do it than with Crossroads Kids Club. So if you want to join that movement or learn more about the ministry of Crossroads Kids Club, visit reachOurschools.com or go to our website, financialissues.org, and learn more. Stick around. We've got more financial issues to come right after this break.
Navigating through investment options can be challenging, especially when you're determined to uphold your God-given values. Every dollar you invest is a vote for the world that you want to live in. Let your values guide your investment decisions and help to shape the culture in which we live. Become a beacon of light and pave the way with biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, where faith and finance collide. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Kids need the hope of Jesus. There's so much loneliness, brokenness, isolation, and bullying. Now you and I, we have the opportunity to do exactly what Jesus said, to go and make disciples right where they are, right inside their public school. The Lord has been building the impact of Crossroads Kids Club, and we ask for your help to pursue a vision of greater national expansion.
To join us, visit reachOurschools.com. That's reachOurschools.com.
Through the ministry of Preborn, the Financial Issues family has saved tens of thousands of lives of babies. What an amazing job that God has done through you, the Financial Issues family. Would you join us in saving the lives of babies? What an amazing reunion we will have in glory, meeting all the people that we have saved. Please go to preborn.org, that is preborn.org, or financialissues.org, and click on the Preborn banner.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only, and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it, and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. Thanks for sticking with us. Our stewardship verse today comes from Matthew 26:14 through 16. Then one of the 12, called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priest and said, "What are you willing to give me if I deliver him to you?" And they counted out to him 30 pieces of silver. So from that time, he sought opportunity to betray him. I've seen some estimates that 30 pieces of silver were worth between $250 to $400, all the way up to some estimates that I've seen that it was worth about 4 months' wages. But I think what the scripture's trying to convey here by giving us the price was that it was also the price of a slave. So it's so sad to me that Jesus valued the most priceless thing in this world, his relationship with Jesus, so cheaply. Judas's love affair with money was also indicated in John 12, where Judas is exposed for, quote unquote, helping himself to what was donated to the money bag that funded Jesus and the disciples' work. So I just want to encourage us today, as we talk about the financial issues of the day, to not let that consume us, to let us always remember the value and the worth of Jesus and not be like Judas and discount them. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Seth?
Shana, that's great. It's a sobering reminder. The love of money literally can be a pathway straight to hell. I think the Bible's pretty clear that Judas Iscariot never trusted in Christ. By this time, Satan had entered into him. And of course, Judas would end his life only several days later when he was overcome with guilt, but it doesn't seem like he was overcome with true repentance for what he had done. This is a sad story. Judas's life is a very sad story, and it's a humbling reminder for us that our hearts need to belong to Christ. We cannot be swayed by the allures and trappings of money as Judas was, but we need to make sure that we're loving what is most important and treasuring what's most important, which is Christ.
Yep. So. Easier said than done, especially when we think of the practical applications and all the things that come up every single day, especially if we're turning on the news, listening to the financial news. We're really so many other things are put into focus, but we really have to fight to keep that eternal perspective.
Well said, Shana. That's good stuff.
We got some questions?
Yeah, let's do it, Shana. We got a couple over on social media. We'll start with this one from Walter in Texas. He's saying, good morning, FISM family. Any good ETFs for preferreds, MLPs, and for REITs? What do you think?
That's a quick answer. Nope, we don't have any that we're looking at. So we have a lot of individual ones, and that's really the strategy for the investment model. We have the FISM model, and then we have the fund ETF model. So the idea for the investment model is that you build your own portfolio, or we help you build your own portfolio by giving you companies that you can look at to put together a portfolio.
Awesome. Next one up here, we have Shana's Daryl from Texas as well. He's saying, Shana, quick question if you have time. CD37, how much influence will the China tariffs or potential embargo affect its sales due to products or components they buy from China?
Yeah, so not as much as one might think. I did see an interview that the CEO did on CNBC back in February, and he was talking about how they've moved about 90% of their supply chain out of China. So that is really good news. Of course, other countries may have tariffs as well, but considering everything else, we still think that this is a good one because it's still on the buy list.
Awesome. That's great, Shana. Moving on over now to Ask Shana. We've got Brandon kicking us off here, age 40. Brandon saying, other than my work 401k and my pension, I'm new to investing. My wife and I are starting a Roth IRA for her as a retirement fund, and we'd like to be aggressive. I see on the asset allocation models, it refers me to 99% in the Israel fund. I can't find any information on that. Can you tell me where to find information on the profits or losses over the past few years? And again, Brandon is 40.
Okay, so the Israel Fund is a mutual fund that's included in some of our asset allocation models. To Brandon, though, I would say go back and look at the asset allocation models. There aren't any that have a 99% allocation to the Israel Fund. So maybe, we did just roll out the website. Maybe there were some glitches in the website, or maybe you just, misunderstood. I know the fund models were a little bit messed up right at the beginning, but we did have a note at the top indicating that. So just go back and look. But so the Israel Fund is a mutual fund that is run by the Timothy Plan. And the purpose of that fund is to invest in businesses mostly businesses domiciled in Israel. And you can find out information. You can find the prospectus for the mutual fund at thetimothyplan.com. You can also, when you're on our buy list or broad list, you can click the arrow. I believe it's at the far right. There's a little drop down, and it'll give you a description of the security. But if you want more detail on it, you can go look at thetimothyplan.com.
Yeah, Shana, I can't stress enough what you just said. That arrow is a great new feature for the new buy list and new broad list. So yeah, it's the furthest right hand thing you can click on any holding when you're on the buy list or on the broad list. That little arrow there.
Yeah, so a lot of those descriptions a lot of them are taken from research that we follow. But it did take a lot if you compare the old website to the new one. Some of them were missing descriptions. Some of them were just kind of generated, I guess, on the fly. Some of them were better than others. So we've done a lot of cleaning up on the new website, and we're proud of it.
Yep, absolutely. Hopefully none of them were done at 2 a.m. while you're up with a 1-month-old child, as I've done some tasks doing that. You don't do it well, but I trust that none of them were. Anyway, back to these questions. Joyce is 62, Shana, saying, hello, I retired 1 year ago. Now I have my fun job working at an ice cream shop. I'd love to come visit you, Joyce, and have some ice cream.
Okay.
I want to buy some stocks in my Roth IRA. I see that FP63 is on your buy list. I was just curious if something is wrong in that the stock is down about $15.50 per share. It seems really low for a preferred. Is everything still okay with this company? What do you think?
Yeah, Joyce, so you would be right. $15 would be considered low for most preferreds, as they're usually issued at par. But what I'm thinking is that you're looking at the common stock, which is a different number. It starts with an F. I don't know the symbol on it. I guess I could find it with the search feature, the underlying company on the website. But if you're looking at the preferred, when you look at that description, the very first thing is a QSIP number. So make sure a lot of the different brokerages will use different formats for preferred. Some of them use a dash. Some of them use a period. Some of them may use a slash. So if you look them up by the QSIP number, then that's going to make sure that you're looking at the preferred. So there is a difference. I did just check, and the preferred is hanging close to par. So I don't think the preferred stock is down much.
Awesome, Shana. That's good. Thank you. Next one up is Vishal. I think I'm pronouncing Vishal's name right. 46 years old, saying, hello, Shana. I redeemed a government-issued bond that matured recently, and I was entertaining the idea of investing in fixed income investments. My questions are as follows. 2 questions, Shana. Maybe we'll take these one at a time. The first question is this.
Yep.
Do fixed income investments pay a steady income or interest like government I-bonds, and do they adjust with inflation?
Okay, so I'm not clear on if he's asking about fixed income investments, meaning specific single investments, or if he's talking about some of the fund investments. So if you're talking about an individual investment, yes, they do. So the most basic form of a fixed income investment is a CD. Most people have a general understanding of how these work. So you put your money on deposit with a bank or a financial institution. They agree to pay you fixed interest for as long as the bond or the CD is in existence, which it goes up until the maturity date. Maturity date could be 1 year, it could be 2 years, it could be 5 years. I guess in some cases there's even CDs that are longer than that. So you know basically how long you're agreeing to let the financial institution use your money, and you know exactly the interest that you're going to get. So it's typically a fixed rate. So if you're putting $10,000 on deposit and it's paying you 5%, you're going to get $500 a year. Now, some of them will pay monthly, some of them will pay annually, most of them will pay semi-annually. So you know the terms right up front. That works the same with bonds. If you're buying a bond from an entity like a corporation or a municipality or even the U.S. government, same kind of thing. What the terms are set at issue. So the maturity date is known, the interest rate is known, but you also have a yield if you're not buying it right at issue. So if interest rates have gone up, the bond price goes down so that the yield is equivalent, because the income stream does not change throughout the duration of the maturity of the bond. Now, if you're looking at some of the funds on the list, like one of the 2 fixed income funds, it does not work exactly the same. So it is a managed fund, and it has a lot of different bonds in there. Could be, depending on which fund it is, it could be corporate bonds, it could be government bonds, could be mortgage-backed bonds. And basically, the fund collects the regular paid interest off of the individual securities, and then it pays out a yield. It pays out dividends to its shareholders. So it does work a little bit differently, but they fill the same space in the asset allocation model.
Awesome, Shana. Then second question from Vishal here is, do I bear the risk of a market appreciation and depreciation? And if so, how does that affect the steady income?
Yeah, so it doesn't affect your income if you don't sell it, so if if it just goes up and down and you're collecting the income, it doesn't really matter to you. But yes, you do bear the market appreciation or depreciation, which will be more apparent in the funds than in the individual securities. So, great questions. That was a teachable moment there. Good for teaching.
Awesome. Yes.
All right, folks. Well, if you are listening on a station that only carries the 30-minute version of the show, we have to wish you a farewell today. But if you want to catch the full show, make sure you have our phone app, because then you can listen to every show when it's convenient for you. You can even skip through the breaks there and actually put it on double time if you want to listen to it faster. You can also catch us on podcast, Apple, or Spotify, and on most every social media outlet that you follow. For everyone else, stick around. We'll be back with more financial issues.
Where's Mima? We found out Shepard's diagnosis when I was about 17 weeks pregnant. We learned that he was going to need a series of surgeries after he was born in order to give him what they considered a normal life. And we weren't sure how this worked.
Yeah, very emotional, very, very broken. And as my wife just said, not sure how this worked. And called Samaritan, and they said, you just go have that baby. You leave the rest to us.
And just to hear the confidence on the other end of the phone of, this is not something that you need to be concerned about at all. You focus on the health of your family, the health of your baby, and we will walk with you every step of the way.
I want to make a point. No matter what happens, I'll always be there for you.
I know.
What separates Crossroads Kids Club from other ministries to reach school-age children? What sets you guys apart?
First of all is our connection with local churches. We mobilize, equip, train, support local church partners. We're right inside the schools. There's a number of ministries that try to serve public school children outside of the school, but we're able to be right there on the campus. Another key thing is just our values. Our highest value is actually relationships. And so we're not a ministry that's driven by a lot of fancy technology or flashy stuff, but rather getting adults who love Jesus and who love kids to sit on the floor with a group of kids, to listen to them, to love them. So I would say the relational emphasis and the simplicity of the model is actually something that makes Crossroads special as well.
Help reach kids with the hope of the gospel. Visit reachOurschools.com.
Welcome back, folks. Financial Issues. I'll be taking you the rest of the way here. Seth Udinsky with Sam Case and the Studio A team. Good to be here with you all today. Hey, just a reminder, folks, I do want to encourage you. Ask questions for us. We're here, and we want to answer them. So reach out to us here. It is Wednesday, April the 16th. We're live this morning. The chat is lively as usual. So if you're not on the chat, boy, you're missing out. You got to come join us. Financialissues.org/live is the place to go. I do want to just let partners know also, we did see a sell alert yesterday. Please act on that. This sell alert was for RE90. It's RE90. You can refer to the alert itself for some more of the details as to why we issued it. There are several different things going on. So check that out and please act on it if you haven't done so yet. Also, make sure to check out Shana's commentary. That is posted as well as the conference call. The commentary is great as usual, really good information. And I do want to remind you as well, folks, Bible study is meeting this Friday. We're not changing the schedule, though it is a holiday. We're still meeting on Good Friday. So I would encourage you to make provisions to come this Friday as we study Luke 23. Also want to give a shout out. One of our dear members of our Studio A team, Darlene, she's got her kiddos home with her today. So I know that's super exciting. So it's not a birthday or anything like that, but it's a fun, exciting day for her. So we're sharing in her joy today with her adult children coming home for Easter. It's pretty cool. Hey, quickly here, folks. Retail sales increased 1.4% for March. That was one of the big numbers we got out today. Stronger than expected, as we are seeing. I find that fascinating that we're still seeing that demand despite what's going on with the tariffs. So the demand remains high. Again, just a slight increase for March that was a bit higher than expected there. All right, Sam,
Seth, you have seen a little bit of panic buying where some people are trying to
for sure.
get ahead of the tariffs.
For sure.
We're seeing a lot of that with cars.
I'm sure that's definitely a part of this. Definitely. People are trying to get in while the getting's good, So good stuff. Sam, speaking of which, let's just jump right into that here. Some of the big news we saw yesterday, Canada now pausing certain tariffs. Now, when I saw this first, Sam, when you'd sent this to me, I'm thinking, great, they're coming to the table. There might be more to this, though. What can you tell us about what's going on?
It's hard to know what this actually means, but you're right. Canada's finance ministry has implemented a 6-month pause on counter tariffs for the United States and its imports. According to Newsweek, the relief will cover goods imported from the U.S., used in Canadian manufacturing, processing, and food and beverage packaging, and for those used to support public health, healthcare, public safety, and national security objectives. The finance ministry says the pause will give Canada time to, quote, adjust their supply chains and prioritize domestic sources. This comes as trade talks between the U.S. and Canada are set to begin in May, and after the EU also announced a pause on counter tariffs while it negotiates with the U.S., though the EU has also said it's trying to diversify away from the United States while still trying to come to the table. So the question with Canada here is, are they pausing these tariffs so they can come to the table and make a deal with the United States?
Right.
Or are they pausing these tariffs so they can negotiate away from the United States, perhaps to a country like China or something like that?
Yeah, for sure. It seems to me like it would be Canada's best interest to just come to the table. That would be my understanding. We've had a long-standing relationship with them. There's a difference in, I think, perhaps, what would it be? Maybe morality or trustworthiness when it comes to the United States of America, the leader of the free world, and communist China. So interesting stuff there.
Well,
Sam,
this
thank
is
you
what
for bringing
Scott
that up.
Bessent said. He said, making a deal with China is cutting your own throat. And I don't think he just means that in terms of, the United States is going to be upset with you and punish you, but also that China is not a good actor on the world stage. And any trade deal with China is going to basically be a deal with the devil.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's well said. So interesting stuff there, Sam. All right, the northern border to the southern border here. We have seen border crossings, no surprise here, folks, hitting record lows in March. Sam, what can you tell us about this now that we are well into the Trump administration? I know Tom Homan doing a lot of work here. What's going on?
I bring this up not because it's necessarily a financial issue, but just to remind people that other things are going on in the administration. Also, it's important to remember that a lot of the tariff talk began with issues over the border. Trump issuing his tariffs on Canada and Mexico to limit the border crossings, and it appears to be working. The latest report from U.S. Customs and Border Protection showed there were fewer border apprehensions in the entire month of March 2025 than the first 2 days alone of March March 2024.
Oh my golly.
The report said aliens are receiving the Trump administration's message. If you cross the border illegally, you will be deported. As summarized by Fox News, this is now the second consecutive month in which U.S. Border Patrol averaged its lowest daily nationwide apprehensions in American history.
You know, Sam, whenever we talk about this kind of stuff, immigration, Border Patrol, someone will get angry. Okay. I've actually, Sam, I know I've shared this with you off the air. I've had conversations with people, friends, and they have been a somewhat vitriolic. And there's been no small amount of frustration and anger from both sides. I think you all can probably guess what my opinion is when I've had conversations with these people. But oftentimes the argument that they'll use, and these are professing Christians, they will say, it's so unloving. It's so unloving to deport people, to send them away from the country that they live in. You know, wouldn't Jesus welcome the foreigner, welcome the immigrant? That is all true whenever you have the opportunity to do that. But folks, we have to remember the civil magistrate has a very important job. Very important God-ordained job, which is to uphold the protection and rights of citizens first. See, Romans 13 talks about the nature of our relationship to the civil magistrate, but implicit in that is that the civil magistrate has a job before God to do well also. And one of their jobs is to protect the rights of citizens first. And I'm not saying that they're not treating well the foreigner or the immigrant that comes in. What I am saying is those foreigners and immigrants, by the way, can become citizens and then get the same rights as natural born citizens do. It's a wonderful thing. The elites don't want you to know that, but you can actually become a citizen of the United States and then have that same kind of protection. It's an amazing thing.
Which is amazing because at the same time, they talk about how horrible the United States is.
I know, absolutely.
It's kind of a weird game.
Yeah.
It's like, it would be unloving to let immigrants let immigrants in the United States, but we also say that they're oppressed in this terrible system in the United States. So it doesn't quite make sense.
That's exactly right. I mean, there's a very clear biblical mandate here, folks. The verse that I would bring up is 1 Timothy 5, where it talks about, this is more talking about a man's house, but, Paul says, if a man does not provide for the needs of his own, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. I think we can apply that to situations like this. If a civil magistrate does not provide for the needs of his own people first, I believe he is displeasing God. I believe he is disobeying God. And so it is his job and his duty to do that first. And I think we're seeing a civil magistrate, not just one person, but a whole administration here that is doing this well. And listen, they're making a lot of enemies doing it, but it's the right thing to do, especially with the mess that we saw from the previous administration. I can't tell you how many heartbreaking news stories I saw of people raped, little girls raped, murdered by illegal immigrants. And then these immigrants receiving ridiculous levels of protection, all while, we mentioned this yesterday, all while elderly Christian women praying outside of Planned Parenthood are getting locked up in prison for that. It was just a totally two-tiered system of justice there. But just wanted to share that with you all. I think it is important for us to see that the Bible does speak to this. And certainly, we absolutely have to have a personal bent of love and charity whenever we have the opportunity to come into contact with the foreigner, seeing it as a gospel opportunity. But the job of the civil magistrate is to uphold the rights of citizens first. And I will go to my grave believing that, and believing that the Bible affirms that. Well, folks, let's move to the markets now. So Tuesday, benchmark indices moderately positive as investors continue to make sense of what was going on. Late afternoon, they reversed course, turned negative, not much, but a little bit, as earnings reports kind of joined in the tariffs. That was really the big things that investors were watching. By the end of the day yesterday, the Dow Jones finished about 1/3% negative, the S&P 500 about 1/6% negative, and the NASDAQ was down just below the flat line, hardly at all. This morning, pre-markets were a little bit lower, and the markets have priced in to open there as well. They just opened, and they're all trending negatively right now, with the NASDAQ the most negative, down 1.5 percentage points. Meanwhile, the S&P 500 is down almost a full percent. The Dow Jones only down about 0.3. So that's what we're looking like for the markets this morning, folks. We've got the Ag Report coming up here with Craig Haugaard, and then we'll get back to more conversation on the other side of this break. We've got a couple questions that came in yesterday regarding some of our conversations, so we'll get to that in a moment. Here's Craig.
This is Craig Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update for April 16th. Corn continues to see good export demand, but domestically there are concerns as several ethanol plants have idled themselves due to poor economics. July corn finished the day 3 1/4 cents lower yesterday at 4.89 1/2. Soybeans ran into some headwinds when the monthly domestic crush numbers came in 3 million bushels less than what the trade was looking for. In international news, Argentina's president announced that he was raising the export tax on soybeans from 26% to 33%. That increase is going to take effect in June and may push more export business to the U.S. July beans finished the day 3 3/4 cents lower at 10.46 1/2. Wheat markets were lower straight across the board yesterday as a stronger dollar and a changing weather forecast pressured the market. Traders have been very concerned over drought in hard red winter wheat country, but better rains are forecast for the dry southern plains, and at least for yesterday, that alleviated some fears. Minneapolis July wheat was 3 1/2 cents lower at the close at 6.15 1/2. Kansas City was a penny and 3/4 cents lower at 5.68 1/2, and Chicago dropped by 5 3/4 cents, closing at $5.56 per bushel. Cotton futures continue to be range bound. July futures ended the session 77 points higher at 66.12. Livestock futures continue to press upward. June live cattle were 72 1/2 cents higher at $199.80 per hundredweight. August feeder cattle rose by $2.10, selling at $288.25 per hundred, while our June lean hog futures were a nickel higher at $95.17 1/2 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures had another pretty impressive session. At the closing bell, we had May futures 44 cents higher at 18.08. This has been Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
It's up to us to stand up and say, enough is enough. All of this unbiblical stuff that's going on, whether it's abortion or transsexual or LGBTQ, widespread pornography, human trafficking. Bottom line, it's still up to us. If we stop investing in these corporations that are trying to destroy us, sooner or later they're going to wake up.
To learn more about biblically responsible mutual funds and ETFs, go to timothyplan.com.
If a woman sees her baby on ultrasound, it doubles the likelihood that she'll choose life. On top of that, we share the gospel of Jesus Christ with her. This is why you should support preborn.
Then they sat me down. If you were to die today, do you think you would go to heaven? And I was like, no. Keeping the child was my first stepping stone. And ever since then, God has cleaned me up from the inside out.
Help support women in need. Go to preborn.com/FISM.
Every day, kids all across America are coming to school with some kind of hidden pain.
I've seen kids come in who are just so confused about what's right and what's wrong, just having no idea that God loves them. And this just breaks my heart. Crossroads has the opportunity to bring the Word of God right into the public school, to reach children right where they are.
And when we see that happen, we see God changing lives.
We want to see kids not only come to Christ, but pursue a lifelong relationship with Him. And so local churches are uniquely positioned to disciple those children as they become young adults and through their lifespan.
Crossroads comes alongside a church and provides that church with a club structure, curriculum, training, and ongoing coaching for them to run these outreaches in public schools.
If you are burdened for the children of America, consider making a donation to Crossroads Kids Club. For more information, visit reachOurschools.com. That's reachOurschools.com.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Hey, it's good to be here with you all today, folks. Lisa from Texas, good morning to you. Matt, I know Matt's a new partner from Warner Robins, Georgia. Matt's been asking some great questions. Good to see you there, brother. Dave and Darlene, great to see you. John from Alabama, been giving some great comments as well on the chat. George from North Carolina, always a great encourager. So, George, thank you. Of course, we got Jason as well. We've got Roblin in Texas. Good to see you, Roblin, over there on the chat. Bob from kind of near our neck of the woods here, Toms River, New Jersey. Good to see you, brother. And of course, the great Elijah Kelly, our broadcast engineer, is also on the chat, as well as James from South Carolina. Good to see you, James. So many of you on the chat this morning. Grateful for you. Also, those watching on social media. I see Sherry on Facebook is saying, I love that arrow. I do too, Sherry. If you're wondering what arrow Sherry's referring to, it's a new feature on our website where if you look at a position on the far right-hand side of it, you can see there's an arrow, a little drop-down arrow that gives you a more in-depth description of what that position actually is. Great new feature of the website. So glad you're enjoying it there, Sherry. That's cool. All right, Sam, we got a couple questions here that were sparked from our conversation with Shana yesterday. So in the first part of yesterday's show, we were talking about, there was one specific company that Shana didn't mention by name, but it's a company that is basically saying that they have to raise prices on their goods because of the tariffs. And so we got several questions, really some comments and questions from this. Why don't we do this, Sam? Let me read Gage's, because I know you have a lot to say about this one. So Gage brought up a question yesterday. He is not a partner, but he's a listener. And he said, I actually have to commend that business that was transparent with the tariff costs. They show how much they have to increase the price of the product to offset the tax. Many businesses will or will not hide the tariff tax, but simply increase the price of the product, possibly to a dishonest profit gain. I'd like to hear what you have to say about this. And Sam, I want you to go first here because you had some great things to kind of say about this. So how would you respond there?
Well, I understand where Gage is coming from. We crave price transparency so badly. Yeah. But I guess my question back to him would be, how do you know the company is not being dishonest about the cost for the tariffs for dishonest gain for their profit? So I'm not suggesting this company in question is actually doing that, but what I'm saying is that if a company's going to be dishonest, they can just go ahead and do it with just about anything. A company could, easily say the tariffs added $5 to this product, but if they want to be dishonest, that could be a lie. It could just be $3. So you really don't know. If your concern is about our companies trying to sneak in additional profit, they could use the tariffs as a way to do that. Yeah, absolutely. And, I think to add a further element to that as well, there is a political game that's being played here. This company, it really seems like, the writing was on the wall, and I don't know if that was purposeful for it, but it sure seems like it. Mentioning the tariff at all seems to be saying like, hey, we really don't, almost trying to take a shot at the Trump administration. Seth, I went to their website. They have Trump's hair on the tariff there you go. Costs. Okay, so it's not even like implicit. No, it's explicitly a political thing for this one company. Yeah, absolutely. So that's not right. Like you just can't be doing that. If it was the other way around, I think we would say that's not right either. So I completely agree with you there, Sam. And I do want to commend Gage for mentioning this. I think it's good to be reminded of this, and it's also good to be reminded that there's going to be cost increases sometimes, but when you use it for political gain, that's where it gets really hairy, I think. So. They can do it. It's just you might be alienating some of your customers. I think this was a sexual wellness company, so there you go. Customers are probably on one side of the spectrum versus another, so they probably have a lot of Democrats in their base, so they know who they're talking to. Maybe the writing was on the wall already. Exactly. With that one, but not sure. Well, good stuff, Sam. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with that one. And Gage, I really appreciate you bringing that question to us. Keep on listening. And then we got another one, Sam. Why don't you tackle that one there? Al was sharing something as well from what he saw. Yeah, Al says, talking about price increases, he says he has noticed that prices at Walmart in Osprey, Florida have increased for certain things around the $100 range. He says they went up about $10 or $15. So these had cost $100. Now they cost about $110, $115, which he says is more than normal for these prices for these regular products. And he does think it's tariff related. Yeah, you know what, Al? I think you're probably right. And I think we have to remember that even in spite of all this talk, what our conversation we just had, a moment ago, this could cause price increases. I mean, it probably will, actually. That's kind of the nature of the game. A tariff is a type of tax, basically. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But, my understanding of this is that this is really an example of some short-term pain for long-term gain. Now, I will say this. It's tough to have short-term pain when we just had 4 years of short-term pain for entirely different reasons. We had price increases out the wazoo because of
unmitigated government spending.
One of the main reasons Trump was elected.
That's exactly right.
Inflation.
That's exactly right. So he's taken a risk here, Sam, for sure, because the prices haven't come down quite yet. But I really do think this is going to be a long-term gain thing. And I think we are going to see it. And you know what? It's a good reminder for us, folks. If you're a member with FISM, and say you've been a member for 6, 7, 8 years, some of you I know for 10 years, you've probably had seasons where you looked at your portfolio and you thought, I'm not liking how many things are down right now. But so many of you have shared how your portfolio is just doing great. It's up higher than you could ever have imagined, looking at the whole picture of it. And I think it's a good reminder for us, that's the mindset we need to have when it comes to our investing. You're going to take some short-term hits here and there, and you can't panic. You have to stay with it. You have to keep going. You have to see the big picture. So hopefully we can see that big picture with this stuff as well. Interesting stuff there. Al, thanks for sharing that. Sam, did you have any other thoughts you wanted to share with that one there?
No, other than that, you're right that this is a risk for Donald Trump. I think his presidency is going to succeed or fail based on how this all shakes out. So, because people elected him to fix the economy, and if the economy is not fixed in the next 2 years, there's going to be real pain in the midterms. And if the Democrats come to power, you can be sure that there's going to be really nothing done for the next 2 years after that, but investigations and impeachment and all the nonsense that we saw in 2018 and 2019.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of maybe perhaps another...
I guess 2019 and 2020.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, 2019, 2020, yep. Some perhaps global nonsense here. China, who we're keeping an eye on here, looking to expand its trade alliances as we're seeing the beginnings of perhaps the schoolyard battle. Teams are, picking sides here. Sam, what have we got from China?
Yeah, pick the big guy you're going to side with. Who's going to protect you? Yeah. China right now is looking to shore up its trade alliances in the wake of Trump's 145% tariffs on Chinese imports. A foreign ministry spokesman said on Tuesday, quote, "In the face of external uncertainties, China will insist on shaking hands rather than shaking fists, tearing down walls instead of building barriers, and connecting instead of decoupling." Chinese President Xi Jinping this week is going on sort of a trade blitz starting in Vietnam, where the two nations signed agreements related to supply chains and railways. He's also visiting Malaysia and Cambodia this week. However, Vietnam is not at the top of the trade negotiating charts for the United States. Instead, according to the Wall Street Journal, the U.S. is looking to negotiate first with the U.K., Australia, South Korea, India, and Japan.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Should be fun picking the sides for the schoolyard game. Sam, I just thought it was laughable. There was this quote here from the foreign ministry spokesperson about tearing down walls instead of building barriers, connecting instead of decoupling. This is coming from communist China, one of the most anti-human, evil governments in modernity, claiming to take the high road. Pretty laughable when you think about it. But yeah, it's good stuff. Thanks for sharing that, Sam.
And I'll say about these groups of countries, UK, Australia, South Korea, India, Japan, all of these are major players, especially South Korea, Japan, India. If just one of those big players can come to the table and strike a deal with the United States, I think it's going to be a rush to make a deal after that, because no one's going to want to be left behind with the United States.
Sure, absolutely. Well, Sam, let's close the show here. I think it's appropriate to end it this way. Oh, I saw some great news here. I'd love for you to bring us up to speed on it. We're seeing Planned Parenthood sites closing, and that's awesome. And I want to see more of it. What can you tell us about the latest news here?
Yes, they are closing. Earlier this month, 3 Planned Parenthood facilities announced they were shutting down in, I think it was Michigan, citing Trump's defunding efforts. President Trump froze $27.5 million in Title X or Title 10 family planning funds going to Planned Parenthood for violating his anti-DEI and immigration orders. So it is a freeze, but these abortion facilities do rely on this money, so if they can't have access to it, they're going to have to shut down.
Yeah, and I say amen to that. I hope every single one of them gets shut down. This is what so many, I know, Christians, conservatives voted for. One of the great evils of this nation, folks, of course, is the bloody massacre on our hands, the murder of millions of babies funded by the American taxpayer. The largest factory in all of this is, of course, Planned Parenthood, and so I hope that we live to see the today where every single Planned Parenthood gets exterminated, wiped off the face of the earth. And I say, praise God, whenever one of these child-sacrificed modern day, temples, pagan temples, gets shut down and its employees get unemployed. And I pray that those employees would find true life in Christ, forgiveness for the lives that they have ended. It's great news that Christ gives us that forgiveness, folks. And, if you want to be a part of this, our friends at Preborn are right there. Their end goal, we've heard Dan Steiner say this, is to destroy Planned Parenthood. Obviously not to attack it physically, but to stop the flow of money, to stop the babies from being murdered there. And so if you want to take part in that, folks, Preborn is a great place to do that. Just check them out at preborn.com. You can find their information on our website, financialissues.org. Click on the Preborn banner. I'm so honored to be a part of that. Whenever we have Dan on or we have a Preborn representative on, just seeing the impact that the Financial Issues family has had in shutting down these worship houses of Satan, which is what Planned Parenthood is. Pretty amazing stuff. And we're fighting for the truth, fighting for the innocent, for the glory of God. So I'd encourage you to check them out, preborn.com. All right, folks, that's all the time that we have for today. Shana will be back tomorrow. We're looking forward to it. Just want to remind you again, Bible study will meet on Friday of this week. I'm looking forward to seeing so many of you there. Until then, remember, everything you have belongs to the Lord. Let's be found good and faithful stewards with what God has given to us. Get your calls queued in early tomorrow at 9:05 Eastern Time. We'll see you then for more Financial Issues.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.